Guys, welcome back. Here in this video, we are going to discuss what exactly service endpoints and private endpoints. Right. So basically, the service endpoint is equivalent to gateway endpoints in our AWS environment. So, for example, you have an EC2 instance in private subnet. You want to access some of the AWS resources like S3 from these private subnet EC2 instance without using internet. So then we can use this endpoints option. So the private endpoint also works for similar mechanism. So but the difference between service endpoint and private endpoint is in service endpoint, so the storage and all is going to have a public IP address, but the VM we are going to use private IP address to get connected to the public facing storage. When coming to private, so your storage also will use private IP, your VM also use private IP. So in simple, these service endpoint, so one end it is public, so the from the service end, so basically if you are taking storage from storage end, it is going to use public IP address, but from our VM end, it is going to use private IP. When coming to this private endpoint, so in both the sides, it's going to be a private IP address for the data transfer or the resolution, right? So the advantage with these endpoints is, so the data communication will happen within Azure backbone connectivity only, and it's a better secure compared to accessing data over the internet, and it's very easy to set up. So when coming to this service endpoint, it supports a lot of Azure services like Azure storage, SQL databases, Azure database for PostgreSQL, MariaDB, Cosmos DB. So it supports lot of Azure services, so we can access all these services securely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a storage account, and I'll try to upload an object into the container, and I'll try to access that object from this VM and from my local laptop also over the internet. So then I'll modify and we will test. All right, so this is our VNet and here is our instance. So let's go to storage account. I'm navigating to storage accounts now. Okay, I don't have any storage account. Click on create. I'm going to create one now, and I'm going to use the same custom VNet resource group. And storage account name, this should be unique. I'm going to call this as Avisway. And my VM and all is in Central India. I prefer to create the storage account also in Central India. And I'm going with the standard performance method. And so you can go with the different options like advanced settings and all. And you want to enable SFTP protocols and all. So now when navigating to networking option, you see this enable public access from all networks. If this enable public access from all networks is enabled, whatever the data we upload to the storage account or the containers, so it will be available over the internet with public accessible URLs. All right, I want to go with that option now. Enable public access from all networks. So data protection again and all, I'm going with all the default options now. Click on review. That is only option I want you to pay attention for now. We have a dedicated video on storage accounts. There we will go through the all options. Click on create. So you can compare the storage account as a S3 when coming to AWS. So S3 stands for simple storage service, right? There you create bucket, you upload all the data. So in similar way, we have storage account here in Azure. So the deployment is in progress. It won't take much time. All right, it's ready. Click on go to resources. And so in left pane, you can find containers. Don't worry what exactly these. Click on this plus symbol. I'm going to upload a couple of images here. So I'm going to give container name as a IMG, public access level. So I'm going to set to blob, then click on create. All right, one folder or container got created here. So then we can upload. Just click on that container. You can find this upload option. Click on upload. And here you can find this file symbol, the browse symbol. Click on select a file and whatever the image you want to upload. So you can go and select that. I'm going to upload my logo. Just click on open, click on upload. So now the file uploaded successfully here. So then we can select the file. And if you want to access this file, here is the URL. Basically, this URL is a publicly accessible URL. All right, how to access it? Just take a new tab, give that URL, click on enter, and you can see we are able to access it. So the storage account we have created now is a public facing one. So the same object we can access from our uh, VM also. So as this is a Linux operating system, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to use wget to download that. So wget -o. So then I'm going to give a file name. I want to call this as logo.png. So then I'm going to give the URL. All right, I have given that object URL. When I click on enter, if you give ls, you can see logo.png is now downloaded. So from our local network, we are able to access, and also from this Azure VM also we are able to access. So this is regular scenario. Now, I don't want to access these information or this data uh, over the internet. I want to securely access this data, that's whatever the data I have in the storage account. So that data securely I want to access from my VM. So in that scenario, we can navigate to networking. First, I'm under storage account now. You can find that here. Navigate to networking. And you can find an option here, enable for all networks. Now, I'm going to select enable from selected virtual networks and IP addresses. So then to what virtual network you want to make the storage service available. So click on add existing virtual network. So then you go and you select the virtual network. Uh, so I'm going to select custom VNet RG. So then to what are all the subnets? I'm going to select both the subnets. So then click on enable. Now you see here it is enabling a service endpoint. All right. So basically now what are all the resources we have in this dev VNet? So basically we have two subnets, right? So what are all the VMs we have within these two subnets? Only those resources can access the data from the storage account. All right, this VM should get access without any difficulty. All right, it successfully enabled the service endpoint. Click on add. All right, now we have revoked enable for all networks. We have enabled for only specific virtual network and IP addresses. All right, just click on save. It just updating. Once it got updated, if you are trying to use this publicly accessible URLs, it should not work. So, but sometimes the cache will take effect, and also you need to wait so till the settings got saved. All right, the settings got saved now. So if you want to access this file, again, as I told you, this is loading from cache. So let's take an incognito window and let's test this access. See, seems again it is loading from cache only. Let's wait for a minute or two. So the cache is very effective here. All right, so we can do one thing. Let me go to this VM and let me try to download it again. I'm going to call this as a logo1.png and it downloaded successfully. So, but from this browser, it should stop working. Or you can do one more thing, guys. So basically, you go to containers now, you click on IMG, and it should give this authorization error. So, the image we have within the storage account, so that we are trying to access over the console. But what we have mentioned, so whoever is part of these two particular subnet resources, only they are allowed to access these resources. All right, so that's the reason whenever you manually navigate into containers and whenever you're trying to access, it is giving 403. So that means authorization error, or it's a basically client-side error or not having valid permission to access this data. So you can confirm by using this. Otherwise, you can just clear cache and you can try to access. You see now? It's showing authorization failure. So, but from my VM, I'm able to access. I'm going to download same thing again. This time I'm going to call this as a logo2.png, and you see it got successfully downloaded. So now my VM is using private IP address to get connected to blob storage, right? You can see that here it is using it, it's able to resolve this with the help of some public IP addresses and all, and able to access the data. So this is service endpoint concept. Now, I don't want to use service endpoint. I want to use private endpoint to access this. So in both the sides, from storage side, I want to use private IP address. From my VM side also, I want to use private IP address. In that scenario, we can use private endpoint. So, but before that, let me show you one thing. I'm going to use dig command to this storage name. So let's give that here. All right, I'm going to get, so you see here, it's giving some IP address like a 52.239.202.4. So this is a public IP address from service side, the storage side, from blob side. Now, I really don't want to use this. I want to use both the sides private IP address to access the data. In that scenario, let's simply go to this storage networking, navigate to private endpoint connection, click on create private endpoint, and what exactly within what resource group you want to create. So it is going to create an instance again. So my private endpoint. So we are creating it in central India. Navigate to the resources. So what resource you want to access by using this private endpoint. So we are going to use this for storage accounts. Go here, select blob. So then click on next. So virtual network, it is going to pick automatically, and dev VNet or web VNet. So it's going to choose it automatically. Then click on DNS. So it's going to create a DNS zone. All right, just click on tags and review. So basically, the DNS zone resolution will happen to private IP address. Earlier, the resolution happening to public IP address. With the help of the DNS zone, we can access the data. All right, so now private endpoint creation is initiated. So meanwhile, we can go ahead and we can right. So go to networking, and here I want to remove this. I can go here and I can remove. Then I can click on save. All right, so we have successfully removed that here, and the private endpoint connection is approved. All right, is the deployment completed? The deployment is in progress. So now, whenever we are trying to um, dig to this dig to this blob storage, so the IP address, we are going to get one private IP. And also, whenever you're trying to access this data, whenever you're trying to uh, download with the previous commands, the resolution will happen to private IP addresses only. Right? This deployment is taking some time. So meanwhile, let's look into this DNS zones. So basically, this DNS zone is like AWS Route 53. We can create DNS zones. And as part of this endpoint creation, a DNS zone is going to create. This is a private DNS. All right, the creation is in progress. It's created. DNS zone group is creating here. So this is a DNS zone group. So whoever is accessing, so that blob name, so basically that will resolve by this DNS zone group. Okay, this deployment is almost in final state. So now let's give a try to download this object. As we have deleted the resource, it should not allow. Ah, it's allowing, but what IP address it is using? Let's dig that. Set or I'll use that. So you see now it is using 192.168.0.4. Whenever we try to run dig, so it have shown this 52.239.202.4, right? So earlier, service side one public IP address, and from our VM is using a private IP address to access this. So but now our VM is using private IP address. Service side also we are using a private IP address to access the resources. So since the deployment is completed, that is the reason it's working. All right. So without having this allocated manually, with the help of private endpoint connection, we are able to access the storage. So basically, this is what the endpoint concept or private links concept in Azure. All right, this is just equivalent to, as I mentioned earlier, it is equivalent to endpoints in our AWS environment. All right, so I hope this video is useful. Thanks for watching, guys.